My wife and I have been together for 5 years. We have a toddler, and we were planning to expand our family. I decided to tidy up my wife's closet because of a mold problem in the garage, and I decided to inspect the whole house. There I found a gym bag with clothes, some dry fruits, some tampons, and about $1,000. I asked my wife about it, and her face suddenly lost color. At first she told me it was just an emergency bag in case an earthquake or something hit us. I asked her why she hid it from me then. After some back and forth, she sheepishly confessed it was a go bag. Basically, women who need to flee their abusers are told to keep a go bag with all essential supplies, like money and clothes and stuff. I asked her why she ever felt the need to do this. I've never even talked to her in a loud voice. We barely have arguments. Why did she think I'm going to become an abuser? She said she wasn't saying I was an abuser. She just wanted to do it for her peace of mind. I don't buy her excuse. I don't think she trusts me. Otherwise, she wouldn't have to go so far. I took some days to mull it over, and I've come to the conclusion that I can't be with a woman who can't trust me and who sees me as an abuser. I asked her for a separation and told her that I couldn't be with a woman who didn't trust me. I believe that trust is the foundation of a relationship, and if she doesn't trust me, then it's better we part ways. Now she's making excuses that she read too many mommy forums and let herself be influenced by them. She showed me the forums discussing go bags and how every woman should have one. I get the logic, but I can't stay with a woman who doesn't trust me to know that she never needed to do such a thing. I agreed to take more time to think about it, but I think divorce will let her find a man she trusts, not to be an abuser, because she does not trust me. Am I the idiot? Dude, you're gonna jump straight to divorce because your wife has a go bag? Maybe some counseling first? You are the idiot. Does she have a history of toxic relationships? Because it's all good, and he would never do that until he does. I don't have a go bag, but I will tell you, I always have my keys readily accessible, and I think through exactly how I'd get out of a building or situation. Not because I believe or assume that a man might snap, but that I know he can. This was my first thought too. If she had been in a toxic relationship, even if she didn't disclose that to him out of shame, it makes so much sense. Or if someone close to her had been, etc. It's a very valid fear and makes sense, like a prenup. If I ever got into a relationship again, I'd have a go bag and copies of my important documents stored in a safety deposit box, and I would never tell my SO about it. Does that mean I don't trust this hypothetical SO? Nope. The fact that I got to the point I was living with someone else would be a massive sign of trust, but once burned, always wary. I thought everyone had a go bag, LOL. There's like a million reasons to have one, guy or girl. If my fiance had a go bag, I wouldn't care. She's had plenty of weird quirks that give her peace of mind over many things. OP's extreme reaction here makes me wonder if we're missing information about how he interacts with her. Abusers tend to overreact and paint themselves as the victim when they're called out on their behavior. OP, it sounds like you found an excuse to leave her. So what if she has a go bag? It doesn't mean she doesn't trust you. More than likely she read something, and she and her girlfriends think it's a good thing to do. It sounds like you're the one who doesn't trust her. Honestly, I don't get why looking for mold requires you to open up any bags you find. Dude, you were snooping. I think you're jumping from looking for mold to leaving your wife and child because you found your wife's go bag, proving she needs it. I want to go to Disney, so I plan to go down for a week. It's about a 10-hour drive, and it's already really expensive, so I decided the best option was to drive down instead of a plane. I invited 2 of my friends to join me, so 3 people are in the car. Their plan is to leave around 3 a.m., and we'll get to the hotel in time to check in, then spend the first day at Disney Springs. Due to it being a 10-hour drive, we will all drive 3.5 hours, so everyone has time to rest and take a nap in the back. We all agreed that everyone needs to drive. I have a friend I've known for a long time, and I mentioned the trip. She asked who I was going with. and I told her it was our mutual friend and then someone she wasn't close to. She then asked why I didn't invite her. I politely answered that this was just planned so we could get closer. She kept pushing and seriously asked why she wasn't invited. I told her since she couldn't drive, we were driving down, and we all agreed having someone not driving wouldn't work. The road trip needs people to pull their weight and not just sit in a car. She got offended, and I asked, what did she expect? I told her why she wasn't invited. This resulted in an argument, and she called me a jerk. The reason why she doesn't drive is because she's afraid of it. She hasn't renewed her license since she got in years ago. Edit. I have not been invited to stuff that she does with people I know either. Last fall, she went on a trip with 2 people I know, and I wasn't invited. That is fine. I don't need to be invited to everything. Seriously, I don't have to invite everyone to everything. None of my other friends asked why they weren't invited. They told me to have fun. If you don't want her there, fine, but the driving reason is idiotic, honestly. Why is it so important to you all that everyone pull their weight and not just sit in a car? Couldn't she chip in some other way to even things out? She could have chipped in with gas money, food, drinks, etc. You are the idiot. The driving reason is pathetic. Friendships aren't always about being transactional. I disagree. OP's not the idiot. You gave a polite answer first, but she pushed. Driving trips are difficult unless you specifically have friends who love to drive long distances, and having someone who can only contribute via money for gas, food, etc. is tough. Driving is mentally exhausting, especially in preparation for a theme park trip. Standing in lines and managing crowds are also exhausting. The money the non-driver provides doesn't seem equal to that, in my opinion. Have fun and enjoy your vacay. We just bought a property that had been abandoned. We visited the place a few times before we had it totally renovated to get an idea of what we wanted to be done and talk about it with our contractor. During those visits, we brought our kids. They would explore while we looked at things. While they were exploring, they found a hidden stash of treasure hidden. We assumed the previous owner's kids must have left it. It had little knickknacks and toys that a kid might collect. There was also a diary that a child had written in, as well as some cash, about $370 with change. My wife and I decided to let them keep the treasures they found. They were excited about it. It's not like we had any chance of returning it to the owner, since this house hadn't been lived in for over a decade, and whoever lived there previously was long gone. We weren't around that much at the house while the renovation was happening. They're done now, though, so we've started moving in. Our distant neighbor who lives on the other side of the wooded area behind our property came to visit us. He asked if anyone had found the stash. Apparently his daughter used to sneak into the house, and she was the one who hid the treasure there. I did tell him that my kids had found it several months ago, and they threw a lot of it away or had gotten lost by now, but I told him I would check. True enough, my kids didn't have much of the treasure anymore and didn't know where it was. My daughter still had the diary because it was a fancy one that she liked, and it still had a lot of empty pages. I got her to agree to give it back as long as she could rip out her pages first. My wife did rip them out very carefully, but there weren't many pages left because our daughter had used up many of them. There were still the original pages the neighbor girl had written on, so I thought I might as well offer that back. It was not well received, though, because it was fairly clear my daughter had read the pages as she had left comments about things. This made things awkward since there was stuff in there about the neighbor girl's crushes. The neighbor's wife was all up in arms because we let our daughter read her daughter's diary and write comments. My wife had skimmed through the thing when we first found it, and there was nothing too scandalous in there for a kid to read, so we didn't see a problem with it. The neighbor said it was obvious it was a problem since we had ripped out our daughter's pages so she could keep her entries private. I do think it's a little different, though, because we had originally thought it was an old diary of someone long gone, and people read old diaries all the time. The money was another issue because it was apparently money that the neighbor's daughter had been saving up from birthdays and Christmas and chores for years, so they want us to pay it back. Our kids have spent all the money already. Honestly, I don't feel like we should have to pay them back the money. It isn't an insignificant amount of money, and everything inside became ours when we bought the house. I also feel like they shouldn't have let their daughter hang out in an abandoned house. Did you tell the neighbors that maybe it's a bad idea for their neighbor to wander around an abandoned property and a house? Where was this stash found? In the house or on the exterior property? You're not the idiot, but I empathize with the neighbor's daughter. But like the house had been abandoned for a decade, you've been renovating it in and out of the house for months. How did you know it was the neighbor's kid infringing on private property? I didn't tell them about their daughter going into an abandoned house. It was all found inside of a drawer in a closet in one of the bedrooms. I guess maybe they noticed us moving in. My kids found it about 5 months ago, so it's at least that old. Oh, then it's 100% yours. Not even an old shed in the backyard or some hole she dug in the ground. She trespassed, and now she learned a life lesson. The kid obviously enjoyed exploring and spending time in there. I probably would have gone in myself if I were her. I have sympathy for her having to learn a costly lesson, but it's a lesson she won't forget. My dad used to clean houses for my grandpa between buying and selling, and that stuff is what we in the business call loot. If you leave something in a house when it's bought or sold, it belongs to the person or company that buys it. OP, you have no obligation to return the money. Let's be practical. Legally and even ethically, you may be in the right, but is $370 worth destroying your relationship with the next door neighbors and maybe everyone in the neighborhood if they're friendly with that crew already? I would give them a check for the money and try to make amends. $370 is a small amount for harmony with the neighbors. My husband and I have been together for over a decade. During this time, he's been in therapy on and off. He had a hard time finding a therapist that was right for him. A few of his therapists early on encouraged him to just medicate with no regular sessions, and one pushed religion on him. None of these worked. He needed someone to meet with him semi-regularly, not push their religious beliefs on him, and instead work with him to develop appropriate strategies and talk through issues. Whenever he told me about one of these more questionable strategies, i.e. pushing just love Jesus, I said I thought that was inappropriate and that he should find a better therapist and go with that until then. There have been long stretches where he's gone without therapy because my husband isn't generally good at taking care of himself. That falls on me. I have to remind him to do things that keep him healthy and taken care of. Drink water, eat more than once a day. There are literally times I've had to tell him he needs to brush his teeth. He also gets anxious about making any decisions on his own. I have to help him pick out new clothes and write emails to work colleagues or groups of friends. He can't make plans for us. I have to make them all. Or I should say, I have to help him make the plans so that he can say that he made them. He's a good person. He loves me so much, but he's so dependent on me. It's draining. I have to spend at least an hour once a week talking him through whatever crisis he's having. Sometimes this crisis is over what new collectible to buy, a collectible for him. I'm not interested in that. I finally demanded that he look into therapist again. I told him that I could not be his therapist and he could not depend on me this much. He needs to start caring for himself and get a therapist to work with him to develop these skills. And he did, which is great. However, a month into therapy, he said his therapist had homework for me. I was supposed to write a list of all his great qualities, at least a page or two. Mind you, this is after years of me carrying all his emotional baggage, essentially mothering him, giving him credit for things I did so he could feel better about himself. And one year, I did write out 100 things that I thought were great about him for a gift. I was so frustrated. I said no. I said therapy is his work, not mine, and I've spent too many years of our lives solving things for him. It wasn't fair to ask me to sit down and do this homework when the point of his therapy was for him to build his skills without depending on me all the time. He was upset but accepted it and said he understood. Well, just the other day, he told me that his therapist doesn't like me and thinks I should be thanking and showing him appreciation more. I told him I didn't care what his therapist thought. They were his therapist. This does have me thinking, though. Am I the idiot for not doing this homework that his therapist assigned to me? Not the idiot, but you need your own therapist. You're carrying 99% of this relationship, and it seems to be draining you completely. Why are you still in this relationship? What do you get out of it? Helper syndrome? Codependency? Respectfully, he's a good person, he loves me so much, isn't sufficient for a rewarding and supportive partnership. Info. Is your husband searching for therapists by, 1-star ratings at the top? If the therapist wants you involved in his treatment, he should schedule a meeting with you or ask you to sit in on your husband's session. It's wildly inappropriate for a therapist to tell a client that they personally don't like one spouse. Honestly, in this situation, if my partner had told me that his therapist didn't like me, I would just say, good, divorce me, and go stay with a friend or in a hotel for a week or two. I might ring the therapist and let her have it too, but that would depend heavily on my level of, okay, I'm done now, versus my level of anger. Either this therapist is completely bogus, or your husband is making things up. Recently, my daughter, pre-tween, had a health scare that required her to stay in the hospital for 5 days for tests. Fortunately, it was something smaller and not as scary as we feared. My daughter needed an adult to stay with her all day and night at the hospital. Only one visitor in the room from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. My husband can't be with my daughter all day because his job demands a lot, and we have our other son to take care of, tween. So we decided that I would be with our daughter all day. During his lunch hour, he stayed with us from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. My sister and I are close. She's my daughter's godmother, and I have no doubt about her love for my daughter. She and my husband have disagreements and are not that close, but nothing major. When my sister heard the news, she sent a message saying that she'd like to help me stay with my niece, and I said that I didn't need it. She asked if she could visit during her lunch, which coincides with my husband's schedule. I said that my husband sees us at this time, but that she would be welcome at any time. She said she couldn't do it at a different time, as she had to work, and asked if she and my husband could alternate a few days. I asked my husband about this, and he made it very clear that this was the only time he could and wouldn't give up, especially at such a stressful time. At the time, we didn't know it was something minor. I responded to my sister, saying that unfortunately, this schedule wouldn't work because of my husband, but she was welcome at any other time. She said that we were being unfair because she'd also like to see her goddaughter at this delicate moment, and it wouldn't hurt to give her a little time. She mentioned that maybe he would think different if it were anyone else. I was honest here, saying that this wasn't about her and that I would give preference to my husband when visiting, but she is free to go at other times. But if that's not possible, she'll have to respect that my husband comes first. She was unhappy and said that we could compromise on her spending time with my daughter, but we decided to be selfish and not realize that other people who also love my daughter very much would like to have time to see her. In the end, she managed to leave work early one day and stay with us for 30 minutes. But to this day, 1 week later, she's still upset and avoiding long conversations with me. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. This is his daughter, not hers, and you're the child's mother. You both get to decide who's more needed there and needs more time with the child during stressful situations. There's no way you could be the idiot in this at all. And your sister sounds like she feels entitled because she's the godmother, which is in no way okay. If your sister wanted to help you and your family, she would help you with your son, who's not getting the same attention during this trying time. A parent is a more important relationship than an aunt. I'm glad you held your ground. I'm sure your husband felt bad enough, only being able to be there for his wife and child in the limited time he had. Sister needs to get over herself.